Welcome to the Right Queries video. In this video, we'll learn how you can create a database, create a table, and insert values into the table, and also some other things to make sure data integrity. Alright, let's create our very first database. To create a database, just type create database and then the name of your database. In this example, we are going to create a shop database like inventory, customers, salesperson, and all that. So we'll create a shop database. So this is how you create it. Create database and then the name of your database you want. So let me just run this file and the database should be created. You can click this refresh icon and you can see your newly created database, that is the shop database. And right now we don't have any tables and all that, so let's create our first table. First, I'll start by creating an inventory table. So creating a table is very similar to creating a database. You have create table and then the name of the table you want. In this case, I'll name it inventory. Now we created an empty database first, but we cannot create an empty table without any columns. So we have to specify the columns of the table. So in our example, we have 4 columns. That is the ID column. I'll just name it inventory ID. Then we have the name column, the name of the item. Then we have price and quantity. So this is how you create it. But this is not over. What you have to do is you have to specify the data type of the column because each column has a data type. While creating a table, you have to specify the data type of the column. So after you write the name of the column, you have to specify its data type. In my case, inventory ID, I'll make it integer, so int. For name, it's a string, so string. But actually in SQL, we do not have a data type called string. So you cannot just type string like in Python. In SQL, we have something called varchar. Now varchar stands for variable character. We'll learn about this a little more detail in upcoming videos hopefully. But for now you just need to know that varchar is same like a string in Python. So name should be a string or varchar in SQL. And not just varchar, you have to specify its length. What is the maximum number of characters the name should have? Now let's say a name of the item should be maximum of let's say 25 letters. So 25 letters. So anything more than 25 letters will be omitted. That is, the rest of the string won't be inserted into the table. Only the first 25 characters will be inserted into the table. And then price is obviously an integer and quantity is also an integer. Now you can already see that this query is quite long, and let's try to divide it into multiple lines so it's much easier to read. SQL doesn't care how many lines or how many tabs you insert, so it's up to you based on the readability. So I'll just create a line break over here, maybe insert a tab like this. So this looks much cleaner and much easier to understand. Now by the way, as I already told, enter, tabs and all, SQL doesn't care. So I can write something like this maybe. So this is actually completely valid in SQL. There is no error. But you can obviously see that it's so messed up. So I'll just go back. And this layout is much more readable and much more cleaner. So I'll go with this layout. So let's run this whole file. You can see there is an error. That error is can't create database shop. Database already exists. Last time when we run this file, we already created a database called shop. And now when we are running this whole file again, it's trying to create the database again with the name of shop. And you cannot have 2 databases with the same name. So what you could do is maybe you could delete this database and run this whole file again. Or there's one more SQL trick that you have to create this database only if a database with that name doesn't exist. So if not exists. So what SQL is going to do is going to create a database with the name of shop only if it does not exist. Now in our case, we already have a database called shop. We created it earlier. So now we already have a database called shop. That means when we run this whole file again, it's not going to run this line. Why it's not going to run? Because we already have a shop. And this we are saying SQL that create this database only if it does not exist. We already have the database, so it won't run that line. So let's run the whole file again. And you should not see an error, but we have an error. And that error is, okay, that was pretty obvious. That is no database selected. Okay, we told SQL that we need to create a table called inventory, but we didn't say in which database we want to create. First we told SQL that create a database called shop, and now we are saying create a table called inventory. But did we say SQL in which database you want to create? In our case, we have three databases: a school database, a shop database, and a sys database. Now SQL doesn't know in which database you want to create that table. So for that, you have to use the database first. So use, then the name of your database, that is shop. So we're going to tell SQL that use the database shop. So SQL knows that we are using the shop database. So whenever we create a table, SQL is going to create this table with the name of inventory in the shop database. So let's run this file again. And yeah, you can see create table, it shows a tick mark which indicates there was no error, and we got a response without any error. So to take a look at our table, first of all we have to refresh because we cannot see any table over here. So refresh, and yeah, we can see a drop down menu. If I click it, you can see our inventory table we have created. So you can click this icon. So when you click this icon, you can see the database, or if you want, you can use that select everything from inventory table like that we learned earlier in the earlier video. But I'll just click this button, it's much more easier. And you can see actually this query was run behind the scenes by this app, and we got our own table. So first thing is inventory ID, name, price, and quantity. You can see inventory ID, name, price, and quantity. So we have successfully created our table. And now that we have created a table, it's time to insert values into it, because currently our table is empty, only with columns and the data types, but we didn't insert any values. So let's start inserting it. So for inserting values into the table, we have a command called insert into. Now insert into takes the name of the table you want to insert, because a database can have multiple tables. So you have to specify in which table you want to insert the values or insert the records. So insert into the inventory table. So inventory. And then the name of the columns you want to insert. So it's not necessary that every column should have a value. Maybe you can skip some columns while entering data. For now, we'll just insert everything into the columns, and later on we'll see what that means. So first, I want to insert items into the inventory ID column. So I have to specify inventory ID, and then I have to specify another column name, then price, then quantity. So what this line means is, first we are going to insert into the inventory table. Now inventory table has multiple columns. So we are saying SQL that I want to insert values into the inventory ID column, name column, price column, and quantity columns. Then you have to specify what all values you're going to insert. So values. Now already our query is getting too long, so I'll just break it into another line. And then inside the parenthesis, you have to specify the values. So let's insert our very first item into the table. First, you have to make sure that you're going by the order of the column you have specified over here. So the first thing I wrote is inventory ID. So our first thing in this parenthesis should be our inventory ID. So 1, for example. And then the name, I'll name it milk. Then the price, let's say $4. And quantity, let's say there are like 30 milks in the shop. So this is how you do it. Now we are already getting an error, that is insert is not valid at this position, because you can see after this query you have to put a semicolon, because then only SQL know that this is the line end. If you don't put a semicolon, SQL will think that this whole thing is one query, and actually it's not one query. So SQL have problems. And also we're not putting a semicolon in the end, because after this line we don't have anything. You can see line 13 is the last line. So after that you don't have anything. So you can just skip the semicolon. That's why last time we skipped the semicolon. But after a query, if you have some another query, then you have to specify semicolon. So now everything looks okay. So let's run this file. Now you get an error. Table inventory already exists, because we are running this whole file again, and it's trying to create a table called inventory in the shop database. And you can already see in the shop database we already have a table called inventory. So again, you cannot have two tables with the same name. So to prevent that, you have the same thing like for database. So create table if not exists. So this line of code or this query is only going to run if inventory table doesn't exist. Now in our case, we already have an inventory table, so it's not going to run. So you won't have a duplicate table error. So let's run this again and hopefully it should work. And yeah, we didn't get any error. So let's go to our inventory table, and now we don't have any items because we have to refresh it. You can see we got one inventory ID, name is milk, price is 4, and quantity is 30. So we have inserted our very first value. So let's recall what happened. We created a table first, and now we are going to insert values into the table. So insert into the inventory table. So we have to insert in this table. Now inventory table has multiple columns. So maybe you want to skip few columns. Like for example, like while inserting this milk record, maybe I don't want to specify the price. Maybe I just want to specify inventory ID, milk, and quantity. So price will not have any value. So for that, maybe you can just skip the price over here and skip it while inserting it. That we'll see a bit later. Let's just recall what happened. So insert into the inventory table, first the inventory ID, name, price, and quantity. So inventory ID, that's the first thing. And the second thing is name, that is milk. Third thing is price, that is 4. And fourth thing is quantity, that is 30. So we have entered into the table in the same order. Now you can change the order while inserting. Maybe you want first price and then name. You can do that. Yes, you can do that. But if you see, you can see inventory ID is first, so first is milk. Then we have price, but over here price is milk. So we have to change the order over here also. Let's see what happens if you don't change the order. So if you run it, you can see incorrect integer value milk. So why is the error like that? You can see we specified that price should be an integer. So while we are inserting into the price, that is 1, 2 in the second item, you can see the second item is milk over here. So SQL thinks that, okay, the first item is inventory ID, the second item is price. So this should probably be the price. But we're told that price is an integer. Is milk an integer? No, the value will not be inserted into the table. So if you go and refresh, you can see nothing is inserted. So you need to be careful about the order what you write here. So we can see that price is second. So I'll put price as 4 and name is a varchar obviously. So I'll name it milk. Let's insert it again. So I'll name it as 2 and maybe let's change the quantity of 45 for example. So inventory ID is 2, price is 4, name is milk, and quantity is 45. So let's run this file, and you didn't get an error, and refresh the table, and you can see inventory 2 we got milk, price is 4, and quantity is 45. So it runs perfectly. Now last time I mentioned that maybe you want to skip few columns while inserting into the records. Like for example, I took that maybe you don't want to insert price into the column. So you can skip that. Let's create a new item called TV. And maybe you don't know the price of the TV yet. So you can just skip the price. So while inserting into the columns, I won't type the price name. So over here also I don't have to type the price. So I'll just remove it. So now we are inserting into the inventory table. So first of all, inventory ID is 2. No, we'll make it 3 because already 2 we have. By the way, we can have duplicates for now. So I'll just put it 2 so that you won't have any doubts. So inventory ID as 2, name as TV, and quantity as 45. We didn't specify the price. So let's see what happens. Let me run this and refresh the table. You can see a new item has been created. 2 because we put inventory ID as 2. 2 and name is TV, quantity is 45 and price is null. What is null? Null is similar to none in Python. So null means no value, nothing. Because while inserting into the table, we didn't specify the price column. So we actually have a price column in the table structure, but we didn't insert anything into the price column while inserting a new record. So the price column was null. Okay, we learned how you can insert records into the table. We inserted 3 records, 1, 2 and 3. So we have milk, milk and TV. Now we inserted each of these individually. So what we did was we wrote the code for insertion of one item, then we run the file and it was added into the table. Then again we wrote another item, we run the file and it gets inserted into the table. So we did it 3 times for inserting 3 values. But that's okay, but what if you want to enter multiple records at the same time? We do have a solution for that. What you could do is, you could put a comma, so this indicates the first value, and then we can put a second value. So now I just want to enter the price also, so I'll put price over here. And so 2 is inventory ID, name is TV, price is currently is 45, so we'll put price as maybe $400. So inventory ID is 2, name is TV, price is 400 and quantity is 45. So now we already have 1, 2 and 2, so I'll put inventory ID as 3. So this is the first item that is going to be inserted into the table. Now you put a comma and the same thing again you can write. So 4 I'll put as mobile phone. So inventory ID is 4, name is mobile, price I want to put maybe $1,000 and quantity as, let's say there are 25 phones in the shop. So what this line is going to do is it's going to insert into the inventory table with these columns and these values. First we inserted only one value, but now we are inserting 1 and 2 values. So this is how you insert multiple values. So first value inside the parenthesis, a comma, and then another value like this. So let's run this file. So currently we have 3 items, milk, milk and TV. So if I run this, you should get milk, milk, TV and our newly created TV and a newly created phone. So I'll run it and we have currently 3 items and now we should have 5. So when I refresh it, you can see we have 5 items. We have milk, milk, TV, TV and mobile phone. So this time we inserted 2 values at the same time. You can insert like 100 values at the same time, no problem. Before we learned how you can insert just one value and now you know how you can insert multiple values. Now it's getting quite long, so I'll make it look much readable by doing like this. So I'll be doing like this. So if you have like 100 records, you can put new records like this. Like this. So if I just run it, you should see 3 more items created. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and now 3 more means you should have a total of 8 items. So if I run it, you can see we got TV, mobile and laptop. So these 3 items were created.